Jane, hi, I'm Linda Fegins, and I would like to welcome you to the Persuasive Pen podcast. And today we're going to talk about conquering with conviction. And what does that entail? Today we're going to talk about mastering the art of constructing great arguments, compelling arguments, whether you're in the courtroom, the boardroom, or anywhere in between. We want to talk about how do you craft your argument so that you will be effective with a well-structured argument. So you may address the skeptics in the audience or those persons who are skeptical that you have the knowledge and experience to address the issue. One of the important things that you have to remember is that you always want to develop the credibility with your audience, and you need to establish that credibility. Your audience needs to trust you before they can be swayed by your arguments. And how can you do this? By demonstrating expertise, showcasing some experience, and speaking with confidence and authority. How would you do that? You want to assure them that you understand their values, you understand their concern and their experiences, and show what common ground you have with the audience. And remember, I always told you, you always know who you are writing or speaking to. Who is your target audience? Is it the CEO? Is it stakeholders? Is it your project manager, your supervisor, your client, or the nonprofit executive? You want to build trust and open your listeners' minds to hearing your perspective. Engage them with respect. Use data and real life examples to back up your claims. This is just an overall review of just building that foundation. And when you can show the audience that you know your business, you know your stuff, and have the evidence to prove it, your audience will be more inclined to listen and believe. For instance, if you're trying to persuade a team to adopt a new project management tool, start by sharing your own experience with the tool, highlighting your expertise in project management. Then present data from other companies that have successfully implemented the tool, showcasing tangible benefits like improved efficiency and reduced project completion times. So that's important to get that foundation core, establishing that even if it's in writing, you want to engage your audience. Secondly, you want to build that core. You want to build that core with logical reasoning. And that's important for you in terms of logical reasoning. Now, when we say logical reasoning, one thing it entails is that you have to support your arguments with clear, objective data, statistics, case studies, direct quotes from reputable sources. Make sure your evidence directly supports your claims. Versus case studies can show the benefits of renewable energy projects, and that's important. Structure your argument logically. Ensure that each point logically follows and builds upon another from the last and leads naturally to your conclusion, so you can have a clear, direct, understandable call to action and avoid logical fallacies that can undermine your credibility. When you're in the stage of researching, make sure that you're aware of new trends. Also make sure that maybe some position that you're adopting may have had challenges and opposition. Know what they are and know how to address those counter arguments. I'm telling you that ahead, and that you do your due diligence. For instance, in the legal field, you make sure a case hasn't been overturned. Make sure data has now, it used to be popular and accepted, now it's been being rejected. Understand why. See how does it fit into your argument and apply, and show either the pros and cons as to how it affects your position. Again, in logical reasoning, each point should follow a clear, logical path that's easy for the audience to follow. And these points that I'm talking on this podcast right now are those that I'm sure that many of you are aware of. As wise women leaders, it's always good to review, to hear it again, and maybe some points that you forgot, or it enlightens you on a particular point. And no, this is not exhaustive. This is highlighting and showing how persuasive writing is important as women leaders. State your claim, provide the evidence, then explain how the evidence supports your claim. Now, this is probably an old issue now because a lot more remote workers exist, especially since the pandemic. But for instance, if you're arguing that remote work increases productivity, you could start with statistics showing higher productivity rates among remote workers. Follow up with case studies from companies that have or successfully implemented remote work policies, and then explain why these findings make sense given the nature of remote work. Remember, when you are developing arguments, do your due diligence, research. Make sure that the information, the data that you have is up to date. And if it's being reversed or if a trend is changing, be aware of it. Now, let's talk about that. For instance, the whole thing about diversity and inclusion. Women leaders and those men leaders who have joined in have fought hard to get diversity and inclusion. And now you know there is being attack on diversity and inclusion. You must be aware of that and you have to address that. Diversity and inclusion are valuable policies, programs, and initiatives for the workplace, the corporate world, and in business. The company should not abandon it and show how it is good for your company, how it increases the ROI, the return on investment, how it makes the work life more effective environment where person's level of commitment to the company is high, why you need women leadership. So you need to make sure you're aware of those opposing arguments that may arise and be able to address them and be able to show that the evidence is still good to implement, to increase, or to initiate some type of diversity inclusion. Always know what the latest trends are going in your corporate structure, your nonprofit, or in the business or whoever your client that you're working for and writing for. Always understand that. If you're working for a client that's hired you because your skill and knowledge, when you're writing for them and they're presenting, you are arguing or developing a proposal or memo for them to hire you and to use you or to allow you to be the project leader or to become a client. You want to show that you are aware of the issues that are affecting their business, that is affecting the division, affecting the nonprofit, that is affecting the community. So always do your, what I call due diligence. As an attorney for over, I hate to say it, I'm going to say 25, but it's been about 30. I have to make sure when I'm presenting my case that I've double checked that no case has been overturned, that I'm aware of the changing law, but show how in my particular case, under the facts, that the law is still good, or if I'm advocating against that, how it should change. But I'm aware of that, and I'm aware of my opponent's opposing arguments and what I need to address. So even in your writing, you write your draft, your outline. Now, I want to add something that is important that you will hear me say in the podcast or even in the video. You got to have an emotional connection. Humans are naturally drawn to stories. So use personal anecdotes or hypothetical scenarios that evoke emotions. This can make your statistics and dry data feel more relatable and impactful. For instance, you share a personal story about how pollution affected your health or community. Make the issue more tangible for your audience. Emotional appeal can be incredibly powerful in persuasion. People are not just logical beings. Even though we talk about you got to be sound and logical. Can I tell you something? People also sometimes make decisions based on their emotions and their interests. People are driven by emotions. And by connecting with your audience on an emotional level, you can make your arguments more relatable and impactful. And you want that connection. You want them to say, oh, you've gained the credibility. Now they're beginning to see how you're building your argument. Then you're engaging them. So one of the effective tools, and I've discussed this in either the video or another podcast, tell stories. Use vivid language. See, storytelling is compelling. Each of us are drawn in by a story. You listen clearly. You see how the arguments are connected more and more. So you paint a picture with your words. And when your audience can see themselves in your argument, they're more likely to be what? Persuaded. For example, when advocating for a new workplace wellness program, that's simple. I keep using that example. Don't just present the statistics about improved health and reduced absenteeism. Share a story about an employee whose life was positively impacted by such a program. Describe how their health improved, how they felt more valued by their employer, how their overall productivity and job satisfaction increased. Share that. And remember, if you're going to use a real life person, do not use their name without permission. Don't even try to get so close, because you should want to make sure that people are giving you permission and aware that you're telling their story. And so that really is important about that emotional connection. You want to show how you can engage your audience and appeal to not only the logic, but they can show the benefit, the change. And that's important. For example, I have a friend, she works and believes that we should use the earth for green spaces. And how do you produce food? And she talks about compost and all this kind of things about the environment. She even has had taken her 6-year-old granddaughter and their friends to show them about the worms in the earth and how they are good to the earth and how you can use this. She was wanting to present something to the community. And so she approached the situation with a clear plan, wrote up a proposal. And first of all, she established her credibility by sharing her extensive background in urban development and the whole thing about green spaces and renewable energy from the earth. And she's highlighted some successful projects she's led. And she also shared data to show how similar projects had benefited other communities. She presented her core arguments logically. She explained how the project would bring economic benefits, improve the local infrastructure, and create green spaces. And she backed up each point by evidence, economic reports, engineering plans, environmental impact studies. But guess what? To make her argument more appealing and to allow people to hear her, she shared stories of how the project would create jobs for local residents, provide safe play areas for children, and enhance the overall quality of life. And she even brought in residents or two of other areas who experienced the positive impact of projects. Her presentation really had an impact on persons, and people who may have been skeptical, they were excited and supportive. You also want to have a clear call to action. Be clear and direct. End with a specific, actionable request. Tell your audience exactly what you want them to do next. Make it easy for them to take this action. For instance, you ask the audience to support a specific bill, ask them to participate in a community cleanup, or simply learn more about the topic, or to adopt your proposal for a workplace policy change. And remember, once you've did your initial draft, what makes your memo, your proposal, is the editing and revisions that you make. After drafting, seek feedback from trusted peers or mentors. Use their insights to refine your approach, but also edit and revise. Review, edit, and revise. I won't tell you, and you should know this, you always check for your grammar and how it's going to sound. And you should practice reading it out loud or delivering your argument out loud. Pay attention to your tone, pace, and body language to ensure they reinforce your words. That's if you're going to do it orally. But we're talking about the impact of a written communication. You still need to hear yourself out loud to make sure you don't have run-on sentences or that your grammar is correct. To craft great arguments, it takes practice and skill, but you're wise women leaders and you can do so. As we wrap up today's podcast episode, remember that conquering with conviction involves more than just presenting the facts. It's about building a strong foundation of credibility, supporting your case with logical reasoning, doing your due diligence, and also connecting with your audience on an emotional level. So I want to thank you for joining me on the Persuasive Pen podcast. And if you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe and share it with others who might benefit. I know a lot of this, what you heard today, you may already know, but we always need to have a refresher course to ignite some points that we may have forgotten, just to build up and continue to hone our skills. So I want to challenge you to keep honing your writing skills, stay persuasive, and it'll be a wrap for today. Remember to engage your audience, know your audience, provide value, and leave them with actionable steps. Happy persuasive writing to you today. So, I'm Linda Fegins, your persuasive strategist, and thank you for listening to the Persuasive Pen podcast. Have a great day.